Welcome to Optimal Play. I'm Brandon,
I'm Steven.
and we're here to review the Weaver of the Cosmos Mythos pack for Arkham Horror, the card game. It's a little different. COVID is still raging in the United States, so we're staying safe and socially distant, recording this from our own homes. I'm in front of our usual set because this happens to be at our homes, and Steven is recording from his.
It's my girlfriend's extra room that I use as kind of my study.
Oh, well, there you go. Off the top, since it's been a little while since we recorded, I did want to take just a moment to say that Black Lives Matter and Optimal Play unequivocally supports the BLM movement. It's not enough to be not racist. It's time for us to all be anti-racist and to speak out and act against police brutality and all of the other systematic and all the other injustices ingrained into our systems and our society, all the way down to the way we portray people of color in games and the way we treat each other in our hobbyist communities. Anything to add, Steven?
Yeah, definitely, totally agree. And one episode, if you're curious about how this kind of affects gaming, there's a podcast called Game Brain, did an episode recently, I think it's episode 66, about BLM. Our friend Candace was on it, who's been on a couple of Optimal Play videos. And they talk about things like, should a game convention, release a statement on BLM, which is something that, as a white person, I wasn't quite sure. Like,
yeah,
does it seem silly when, companies sort of like put out BLM statements, or is it important? So definitely, great to hear it from, a couple of Black women themselves. Not that they speak for all Black women, but they are, two great examples in our scene. So.
Yeah, I thought that episode was great. I think it was called like a fireside chat on BLM, something like that. So if you skim through the Game Brain podcast feed, I'm sure you can find it. You don't need to be familiar with the podcast to appreciate the episode. And yeah, it was a really good explanation of why silence or why we don't make political statements is in itself a statement at this time. And I learned a lot from it and would highly recommend it as well. I want to say periodically we do have people ask us, and thank you for this, by the way, if we're going to start a Patreon or some way for you to support Optimal Play. We still have no plans to, but would love if you would take that willingness to support or that money burning a hole in your pocket, whatever the reason is, and direct it to some of the great charities and great organizations that are standing up and trying to correct the racial injustice in our society. So we are going to recommend a couple that we really like in the video description below. And that also kind of ties into, there's an event coming up put on by the Mythos Busters podcast called Arkham. Are you familiar with this, Steven?
Yeah, definitely.
So we are going to be participating in that in a few different ways. Steven and I will be doing we'll likely be doing our review of the Forgotten Age, similar to what we did with Carcosa, in anticipation of the Forgotten Age box, Return to box coming out. And we've got some pretty fun ideas for some online playthroughs too. That will be live as part of the event, including something that I'm calling Ultimatum of Crowdsourced Chaos, where we are going to let you guys, those of you who are following FarkhamCon, to submit cards that go into our decks, and we have to play with those cards submitted by as many different people as possible. So we are going to ask that if you submit a card that you make a donation to Color of Change or one of a couple other charities. So keep an eye out for that on our Twitter feed. Mythos Busters, if you go to their website, or farkhamcon.com. I should have researched this. We'll link to FarkhamCon, which has the full schedule and everything. It's at the end of July, start of August, in the video description also.
I especially recommend that if you are upset by any of the cards that Brandon trashed in his binder fodder video, that you can play with those cards.
This is your chance. Support a great cause. Make me suffer. It's killing two birds with one stone, really. All right, so with that, Weaver of the Cosmos is out. Months ago now, we reviewed Where the Gods Dwell. Oh man, hell if I remember what we said, but I've had a chance to play with some of the cards in it, including the upgraded Old Book of Lore. I think it was level 3. Actually, I have a computer in front of me and I still don't have it up and ready. But it's the Old Book of Lore that occupies a hand slot and lets, as an action, lets you or an investigator at your location search the top 3 cards of their deck for a card and draw it. But if you spend one of the 2 secrets that's on the upgraded version, then they can play it fast and at a 2 resource discount. So I did get a chance to play with this with Mandy and alongside a Daisy using it. And this card is nuts. This card is so good.
It's good.
I think it costs 2 or 3 resources. Again, this is completely irresponsible of me not just having it in front of me, but those discounts completely pay for the card. It interacts with Mandy's power and it interacts with Daisy's power in obvious, strong ways, increasing the search or being a bonus action. But even outside of that, I'd consider running this just because the opportunity to get that targeted draw and get the discount twice. And really, it's like a 3 resource discount because you're also saving the action that it would generally cost to play these cards.
And they made the Old Book of Lore 1 cheaper, actually, which was totally unnecessary, but I'll take it.
What was that? I'd forgotten that. It is actually 1 cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah. The funny thing is, so I don't think that the original Old Book of Lore is that good a card outside of probably Daisy. Even for Mandy, I have not, I think, found it to be worth the action just for that 1 little search draw. So I haven't been putting the level 0 card in and then upgrading to the higher level. I've just been putting in the higher level one when I have the experience for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you get it? So you played Old Book of Lore, I think when you were Daisy in our Read or Die game, right?
Yeah, it's definitely one that you put in like 1 or 2 copies with an early Daisy, and then you might take out 1 or both as you get more of the cool tomes. But yeah, the new version is awesome. And don't forget that even though it only says 2 uses, Seekers do have plenty of ways to cheat on more uses. So you can
Good point.
Manipulation to just keep it going.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's is it Astounding Revelation? What's the research card that can put secrets back on it? Enraptured, I think, can do that too if you can run Mystic cards in your deck, which both Daisy and Mandy can do. So yeah, just super strong. I honestly up there with any rogue card, any rogue economic card, I think, in the benefit it generates. And yeah, it's nuts. So that was one that I don't think that I necessarily was harsh on it or down on it in our previous review, but I did not understand just what a bomb that card was. How about you? What else have you gotten to play with?
So one that I think we thought was a real kind of double-edged sword, maybe not worth it, was Summoned Hound. It does have a pretty strong downside. However, after playing with it, I feel like the upside is probably worth it. So it lets you do a fight or intellect with 5 test without spending an action. So it's basically like Leo DeLuca in that it gives you an extra action, but also I found that say Daisy, for example, she normally can't fight. So half the time I just use it as an extra investigate. The stats don't really help. But then the other half the time I'm punching something that I would not normally be able to punch.
Right.
So it's like a Leo DeLuca that 50% of the time also helps your stats. And that's a really, really strong upside. So I do think even though the downside is pretty bad, that card is definitely worth it in some decks.
And there are some tricks to get it to discard it and then get it into play from your discard pile, which does not actually trigger the weakness, right?
Yeah, which is a little cheesy. I kind of object to that on principle, but
I'm actually there with you. I'm not the type to do jank to get around that kind of thing. I want to just take the card warts and all and and be along for the ride. Yeah. Okay, so Weaver of Cosmos came out in Europe months ago, in the US about 1 month ago, and between the opening hours of local retailers and the distribution issues that Fantasy Flight's been having, I just got it in hand yesterday. So I still have not looked at these cards. You've played with them some, right?
Yeah, I've played with a lot of these cards. I was playing 3 meters on Tabletop Simulator, so I actually already played Weaver a while ago and played some of these cards.
Okay, so I will plan on reading these and kind of giving my my first take on them, as we usually do, since these are all brand new to me. And then you can come in with the experienced take from from your wealth of knowledge that I'm sure you've accrued with all these cards. Sound good?
I typically have the better take anyway, but this time there's actually more facts.
Yep. Okay, I don't have really a retort for that. It's probably true. Anyway. All right, top of the stack. I'm pretty excited because I'm looking at Spiritual Resolve, a 3-cost level 5 Guardian asset with Myriad. This whole cycle, I've been saying that Myriad has not really paid off, but one of the things that might make it pay off is when the 3-for-1 purchasing applies to actual higher level cards, so that you like feel like you're getting 15 XP worth of stuff here. Here's, I think, the first example that's been above maybe level 1 or 2. So yeah, this is Myriad. It takes up an arcane slot and has 3 health and 3 horror soak, 3 damage and 3 horror soak, I should say. And as a fast action, discard a copy of Spiritual Resolve from your hand to heal all damage and horror from this copy of Spiritual Resolve. Oh, that's okay. I think I love this. It's the 3-for-1 for level 5, and it's designed in a way that makes the Myriad really matter, right? Like this is a design that's like, oh, okay, here's why Myriad's on the card. I wish that this was like True Grit and something worth fighting for, where it could soak for your allies, because if you get 2 and 2 on this and then heal it twice, it's soaking 7 and 7 over the course of a game. That's more than you take in most games. It would be great if you could spread that love with your team.
You could use Solemn Vow to do that if you wanted to go all in on
Oh,
tank.
good point. Yeah, all in on tanking, all in on Myriad. Yeah, hand out Solemn Vows so people can put their damage and horror on this. Yeah, and it actually like flavorfully kind of even makes sense. You know, they're both like solemn meditative cards. Yeah, I think this is great. I think my one kind of early take on this is it doesn't make much sense with Tommy, because you kind of want it to stick around with kind of floating damage and horror on it a lot. And that means Tommy's weakness is likely to come out and make you trash it, because it's an asset with damage or horror on it. And in theory, playing this for 3 and then cashing it in for as much as 6 when it goes away with his ability that gives you resources equal to the damage and horror on it sounds great. But again, that's not what this card wants to do, right? It wants to be healed for free a couple times. So it's a little bit of an anti-synergy with Tommy, who's the Guardian in the cycle, but still a card I'm excited to try.
Yeah, I mean, the one that I think it's like a perfect synergy for is Mark, because you can just keep spreading damage on it, drawing cards, or draw into the second copy, from that damage. So I do think it's like perfect synergy with Mark, but I think it might just be a powerful enough card that you play in Tommy anyway. Maybe you just let it die, take the money, and then play another copy.
That's true. You could put it in Tommy and then just play it differently. Just let each copy soak and eventually go away and give you tons of money. Yeah. Okay. Have you actually played with this?
This one I have not now, but definitely I haven't played Mark in a while, but next time I do, I would definitely put it in there.
And it's an arcane slot, which means it's practically a free slot for Guardians. They don't use a lot of arcane slots.
Yeah, unless Enchanted Blade is really important to your deck, but even that only takes.
Even then, you're probably not dual wielding Enchanted Blades.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to the point where, so like as we're seeing more arcane slot cards in these other classes, it's going to get interesting when we get to a point where that actually is a slot that the other classes have to think about, and that complicates deck building that extra layer for them. I'm sure it's still a while before we get there, because they're kind of trickling out as they should. Not everyone outside of Mystic should constantly get spells and rituals, but yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
And one thing to note about this is it's not Spirit, so Calvin can't take it. That might be an interesting one for him.
Are there Spirit assets?
Oh, maybe not.
I think maybe they're all events and skills anyway. Yeah.
But it's funny, Spirit is in the name,
Yeah, I was gonna say, it says Spirit in the title. Does that not count for Calvin? This would be nuts for Calvin if he could take it, so that's a shame. All right, that's the only Guardian card in the pack, although you got 3 copies of it, so it's it's almost like 1.5 cards.
Yep.
Our first Seeker card. Yes, there's multiple Seeker cards. Our first Seeker card is Abigail Foreman, the Library Intern. She's a level 4 Seeker asset that costs 3. She's an ally and Miskatonic traded for what that matters. She can soak 1 damage or 2 horror, and as a fast action, attach a tome asset in your play area to Abigail Foreman, or switch a tome asset in your play area with an attached asset. The asset attached to her takes up no hand slots, so she can carry a book for you. Okay, and then after you resolve an action ability on the attached tome asset, exhaust Abigail Foreman to resolve its effects again. Oh, wow. Okay, so she can hold a book for you and read it to you. Um, wow, okay. I feel like this starts to open up tomes for everyone.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
it's
every seeker
also,
because it's a level 4 card.
you missed the biggest thing. It is the first Seeker XP ally ever after years.
That's right. There's never been never been a level 1 or higher seeker ally. Yeah. Well, welcome, Abigail. That's that's big news.
Um,
Have you played with her?
yeah, so I used that old Book of Lore level 3 on an Abigail, and that was awesome.
Yeah.
Am still a little bit confused about how like costs work with using her twice. I think, oh yeah, well, since it's a reaction, you would have to spend another charge to use the old Book of Lore a second time.
Right. Yeah.
Installability, but yeah, it's still really powerful, even if just one at the time. If you run out of secrets and you're just tutoring with the second one,
Yeah.
it's valuable. And it also it works with like tomes that would normally exhaust too. So it lets you get 2 uses out of Encyclopedia over an old Book of Lore, which they normally have to exhaust.
Yeah. 2 uses out of an Encyclopedia would just give you +4 on a future skill test. That's a little weird.
Well,
I don't know if that's worth running a level 4 card to do, but
I mean, if you're fighting a boss or something, I mean, I feel like +4 on your fight stat versus like the big boss of the scenario is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's true. I'm trying to think through for what other tomes besides obviously Old Book of Lore this would go with. I mean, getting so after you resolve, so the Scroll of Prophecies is the Mystic tome that is draw 3 discard one, right?
Yeah.
That one, I think, since the removing a secret from it is in the cost, I don't think you have to remove a second token to use Abigail there, right? Because it's resolve the effects, not pay its cost. So this like lets you double the number of times you can Scroll of Prophecies. That seems bonkers.
Yeah, that's a good point.
For those that can for the seekers that can take Mystic cards, which is just Daisy, I guess Rex, because I think Scroll of Prophecies is level 0.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a couple obvious really good options, and I think this is a no-brainer as you level up Daisy or Mandy. Cool. Seems really good.
Yep.
I love the last pack of the cycle. All the high level cards, they're pretty cool. We've got the Eye of Truth next. It's a level 5 Seeker skill. I don't think that exists yet, right? A level 5 skill in Seeker?
Not in Seeker.
Yeah, not in Seeker. It's got 4 wild pips. It's a spell, and it's practiced. If the skill test is on a treachery and the test is successful, add that treachery to the victory display and attach the Eye of Truth to it. While attached, the Eye of Truth contributes its skill icons to all tests on copies of the attached treachery. Huh. Okay, so once you use this to pass a test for a treachery, then that treachery is practically like mitigated for the rest of the game. It doesn't quite actually it's better than if it just searched the encounter deck and removed those treacheries, because you'd probably rather draw those and have a +4 to their test than have them removed from the deck, huh?
Yeah.
This is cool. When would you play it? I'm like, this is a card that I don't think I would put in my deck until I was playing a campaign I was pretty familiar with, like the later part of the campaign, so that I knew that, okay, these trouble treacheries that have skill tests on them are going to be in there that I want to deal with. I don't think I would just throw it in assuming there's going to be something to use it on. But that said, like most campaigns, whether they have like, it looks like this works on hexes when you take a test to clear it from play, and then the rest of those hexes will be easier to clear in the Circle Undone cycle. I think most of the time you'll have something to use this on. Have you tried this out?
Yeah. So one thing is it is practiced, and a lot of are kind of on the border of whether they have enough practice to use practice makes perfect.
Yep.
I mean, like the classic character for that is like Roland, because it works on some of the Guardian skills and some of the Seeker ones, but some of the like Seekers, they don't quite have enough. They want to use it for deduction, but they kind of want another card or two in the deck to make sure they hit it.
Yeah.
So I do think that that's actually a big factor. It's like if you really need one more card, you can use it on even a non-treasure. You can use it on anything, succeed, and then you get it back with practice makes perfect, and then treachery.
I hadn't thought that through. I was gonna say that the whole like play it once and keep it, that this kind of didn't work with that, but you're right. You just play it on something else and then hold on to it for a treachery. Okay, that's super cool.
The one part of it that actually is, I think, not as good as you're hoping is that actually, like most treacheries, there's only like 2 or 3 copies in the deck. So the fact that this removes one of them makes it significantly worse, because now your chance of hitting those other copies is actually pretty low.
Yeah.
So there's like maybe like once or twice. Like I would say on average, I maybe got like one time when it contributed to someone else's test after the test. But you kind of have to just live with it as like a +4 that will probably help one more test. But it's not like, oh, this like amazing thing where if there was some other way that you could signify that it was for that card without removing it from the deck, and I don't have a great answer for how you would do that, that would be much stronger because you would be much more likely to draw it again.
Right. Well, and I mean, absolute worst case scenario, you find yourself in a scenario where it's not that useful, or it's late in the game and you don't want to keep waiting for treachery or something. Like Seekers would be thrilled to have 4 wilds for an emergency evade or something, right? Like, right, with 4 wilds on a card, you could do just about anything you want one time. It's not that's not that bad of a worst case use of this.
Yeah, I mean, so a 4 wild skill card itself would already probably be a 2 XP card or something like that. The fact that it has the practice keyword, I feel like makes it like a 3 XP card, and then you're maybe paying like 2 more XP for the special ability.
Yeah, this is cool. It's man, there's so many. The thing with level 5 cards, you always look at them, you're like, man, that's so great, that's so fun, and it's just so rare that you actually put them in your decks. And it's hard to see. I don't know. Maybe if practice makes perfect really becomes key to some Seeker deck builds, then this gets in there. So I don't really ever. I see it being like kind of a 7th, 8th scenario, nice to have. Like I've bought all my core cards. Time for some fun toys kind of purchase.
There are a lot of really good Seeker high XP.
Yeah, right. Like, are you really going to put this in over?
No Stone Unturned.
No, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, no Stone Unturned level 5 that just lets you search your deck for any card. 2 if you're Mandy. Yeah, it's hard to justify. Then again, I'm the type who'll do that. Who'll be like, no Stone Unturned. I've played that before. Let's try the new thing. So I'll certainly get this to the table at some point soon. Cool. All right. Moving into Rogue, I know this guy. It's Joey the Rat Vigil, still looking out for number 1. This time he's a level 3 2-cost rogue asset, an ally, taking up the ally slot, and a criminal. As a fast action, you can spend 1 resource to choose an item asset from your hand and play it, paying its cost. I think that is the same as Joey the Rat always did. And then as a fast action, you can discard an item asset from play to gain 2 resources. That, I believe, is new. And he soaks 3 damage, 2 horror, which feels higher than Joey used to be, but don't quote me on that. Okay, I'm not. Since I didn't know he was in the pack, I don't have the old one in front of me. I'm not sure what the cost used to be. Is he cheap? Do you know if he's cheaper?
He might be one cheaper. Yeah.
Okay.
Might be cheaper, I think.
So his cost went down, and then just being able to, like, rogues have a lot of guns that have a pretty small amount of ammo on them, or that you get extra actions for using, so you tend to burn through them pretty fast. Being able to discard guns and get, they're also not that expensive usually in Rogue, so get a lot of what you paid for back. That seems pretty good.
So he's actually too cheap, right? I just looked it up.
Oh wow.
And the other thing I'll point out is that rogues have sleight of hand, so they don't even have to pay for the gun. They can just put it in and then sell it to Joey the Rat.
Okay. Although sleight of hand would normally return it to your hand, and so you're selling it instead of returning it to your hand, right? Mm-hmm. So it's another option. You might not always want to do that with what the card you sleight of handed.
Yeah, not always, but it definitely could make you a nice profit.
Sure. Huh. Okay, I think Joey Vigil was always pretty bad. He costs too much, and then yeah, he lets you play things at fast speed, but it costs a resource, so it wasn't really more efficient, like in an economic sense. So yeah, he's not really a card I ever gave a chance.
He was fine in Preston because money was like
Mm.
no object, but way too expensive everywhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Yeah, if you completely overturn the normal the normal economy of the game so that resources are not like more or less worth an action like they typically are, then sure. So like maybe Jenny for that reason too could be worth considering. And then honestly, he could be an ally to Tony just because Tony goes with Tony chews through guns like I was talking about. Tony's got some stiff competition for his ally slots, so there's a lot of good rogue allies at this point.
Yeah, but I think definitely worth considering in Tony, especially given that he can't, even though he can take a subclass, he can't take any he can't take non-rogue allies. So, you probably just want like maybe this and Leo and take charisma.
This is maybe a conversation topic for another time, but I'm wondering, does Rogue have the best allies? And is that like by design? Like they just have a lot when you build a Rogue deck, you're looking at like a really wide array of very good allies to choose from, especially when you have a few XP to spend. I think partly because Leo is just so good, I think I take charisma in every Rogue that I play. At least until that gets tabooed. I'm gonna continue buying it on every Rogue. Yeah, unless you have a quick thought on that, maybe that's a subject for Farkham Con chat or something.
Yeah, both Leo and charisma should be tabooed. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right. Sawed-off shotgun. Okay, so this is a Guardian card with about 6 inches chopped off of the barrel, right? It's a level 5, 3-cost asset. It's like a lot of guns. It's got all the traits. It's an item, a weapon, a firearm, and illicit. It fits in one hand and uses 2 ammo. As an action, spend an ammo to fight. Instead of its standard damage, this attack deals 1 damage for each point you succeed by to a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 6. If you fail and would damage another investigator, this attack deals 1 damage for each point you fail by to a minimum of 1 or a maximum of 6. Oh, wow. So this is actually extremely similar to the Guardian card Shotgun.
Yeah, so there's 3 big differences. So it's no longer gives +3 fight. So that is huge. That means
there's no boost at all. Yeah. Wow.
Big difference.
Yep.
So maybe you do need that Abigail encyclopedia on your fight stat to use this.
You're right.
And definitely outside of Tony, you would really have to build around this. Most this is illicit, so like Finn could take it, but like there's no way his fight is going to be good enough to take this. Like,
oh hell no.
So you're looking at Tony, maybe Skids if you're really building around boosting up your fight stat and Skids, cop stuff like that. But yeah, you really have to make this like a all-out fighter rogue for it to be worth it. Or you could also consider like a 3 aces rogue to like automatically succeed. Even in an automatic success, you still want to make sure that it succeeds by a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say, how does automatically succeed interact with things that care about how much you succeed by?
Well, the 3 aces give 1 skill pip. So like as long as you're starting out pretty high, like if you start out at 4 or 5 fight and you add 3 aces, you're now up to 8.
Yeah, and you don't draw a token at all, right? If you automatically succeed, so you'll just be at whatever you raise yourself to.
Yeah. And you could add in thing as well.
Man, I don't see spending 5 XP on this and having to put together your 3 aces every game just to fire it once for a big. Yeah, I think this is a nope from me.
So
without the combat stat.
So a couple other things though to know is unlike Shotgun, it is single-handed, so you can sleight of hand it. And
Interesting.
it's not taking away all your other weapons. It is also cheaper at 3 costs, and it is illicit. But though it's probably, unless you're doing a fence deck, again, I don't really see this being used in Finn.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could definitely see like a sleight of hand Tony deck that is also playing overpowered. Maybe he's playing take the initiative, vicious blow. Like I could see it in a deck.
Rogue's got to have at least one talent that just lets you convert money to combat skill, right? I know Streetwise doesn't, but do any of their composure or their original one? I'm failing to remember off the top of my head, but I feel like they must.
Nox, which might be Will in it.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's fighting it. Yeah. So
okay.
Yep.
Oh, this is nice that you've got Arkham DB on your fingertips. We don't usually have this.
Yep.
Yeah, so you know what? Maybe this is just a combo with Hard Knocks and lots of money, right? I guess that's probably the easiest way to get value out of this that I've thought of. But yeah, I have a hard time seeing myself investing 5 XP in this. So many. I think that to spend 5 XP on a card, it really needs to just function on its own. Like it needs to be like if I draw that and nothing else, and ideally whether it's the first or last card that I draw in the game, like it's going to be fun and it's going to be strong. And this card has a lot of potential to be fun, but it's very questionable whether it will be strong.
Well, at least the characters that are able to use this well will also have been good at playing let God sort them out. So they have tons of extra XP at the end of a campaign.
I mean, that's true. That's always kind of been part of Rogues like Color Pie, is that they have a lot of experience and then a lot of expensive cards, like thus Exceptional being primarily in Rogue, to spend it on. So this does kind of, if you kind of assume like, well, Rogues have more XP to burn, like maybe that justifies this a little bit. But I don't know that I would play this if it was level 0 in most of the time. Like, maybe I'd be more likely to build decks around it, like we've talked about, but I wouldn't just throw it into a deck at level 0. It's not without plus combat. Like it's just and two ammo. Like it's pretty rough. Like I think I'd rather play a Derringer in a lot of decks.
Well, what you could do, since you have so many actions, you could attack with a skill boost weapon and momentum, then attack with the shotgun, then attack with the skill boost weapon again with another copy of momentum, then with the shotgun again.
Okay. You know what? I was a naysayer of momentum that I was majorly converted on momentum. That card is great. So true. That's another, I guess rogues do have a whole lot of ways to boost their skill beyond what other classes have. So yeah, maybe there's a place for it. It's I'm just not seeing it as juice that's worth the squeeze. But yeah, I mean it's a card that should exist anyway for rogues, like the sawed-off shotgun, right? Like they needed one of those to really complete their arsenal. So if nothing else, I'm glad it exists for that reason. All right, next, ready for the next one?
Yep.
We're in a Mystic now with Mind's Eye. Off the bat, it catches my eye. This takes both arcane slots. I think I remember this being an icon in in the original rule book. I think it defines this icon as 2 arcane slots, but I don't know that it's ever been on a card.
Yeah.
I can't think of a card that's actually used this icon before, which now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of crazy that there was something defined in the rule book and not used for 4 years. But anyway, Mind's Eye is a 3-cost level 2 mystic asset. It's myriad, so there's 3 copies in the pack. It uses 3 secrets and says, as a reaction, when you would test your intellect, combat, or agility, spend 1 secret to test your willpower instead. And as a fast action, discard a copy of Mind's Eye from your hand to place 2 secrets on this copy of Mind's Eye. Oh, so it's pretty similar to now that I'm blanking on Spiritual Resolve. Yeah, so that's actually a mechanic that we're seeing on multiple myriad cards here. It's kind of funny that that's taken till pack 6 to be a thing, but I like it. I like the myriad, get 3 copies and then discard the second and third. Because stuff like this, usually like your major spells, sure, there are plenty of games where a second shriveling or something to overwrite the first is valuable, but a lot of the time they just sit in your hand too because you don't need them. So it's going to feel pretty satisfying to be able to just contribute your second and third copies of these assets to charge up the originals at no cost. I think that's super cool. And it's fast to do that too. Whether the ability is all that good, that's just when you would test one of your other skills, test your willpower instead, no boost to it or anything. I don't know.
So I don't know if this will ever be good in a Mystic because 2 slots is so tough.
Yeah.
And Mind Magic and Book of Shadows are so expensive. But this card is amazingly fun in Patrice. I
Ooh.
finished a Dream Eater's run with Patrice. And I would typically recharge 2 to 4 or 5 times per scenario because her draw is really good. And she definitely cycles through her deck like every game. And her will would typically be up to 5 or 6 with Pete level 2.
Yeah.
And
maybe Holy Rosary or
Holy Rosary
or whatever.
You play when it discards. So yeah, typically it was like a couple times a turn. I'm getting a +3 or 4 to a stat because most of our other stats are 2. And you can combo it with, say, like Fire Axe even to do 2 damage. Though I think spending money on the Fire Axe is no longer going to help you because it just raises your fight. But as long as your will alone is enough to hit someone, you can Fire Axe and do 2 damage if you're 0 resources. It's helpful to evade. Just you only need to succeed in 1 test to evade. So you just use 1 charge. So I use this a lot in Patrice.
Yeah, this actually, you're right. This feels like a Patrice card in every way. Her arcane slots are a little less precious than for most mystics. And then she draws through her whole deck, sometimes more than once. And so this fast speed discard a copy to charge up the one you already have is like tailor-made for Patrice. This is, absolutely a Patrice card.
And another thing is even investigating was useful. I could still put in like a copy of Shriveling and Rite of Seeking because sometimes you just draw that first and you shrivel things a few times and then even if you overwrite it and it still has a charge left or something, like as long as you use it a couple times, it's not a big deal. So I still did have a couple of other spells in my deck. I tried at first playing fast Sign Magic, and I just realized it's too expensive for like this situational edge case of like, oh, I want to have both Mind's Eye and Shriveling out. So I cut the Sign Magic pretty quickly.
And I just started a Patrice campaign. We streamed it on Twitch yesterday morning, starting the Forgotten Age. So I am just looking at how do I spend my first couple, and it's only a couple experience because the campaign is off to a rough start. But yeah, so this might go straight into Patrice for me. Yeah, I'm excited about this, and outside Patrice, I could maybe see it in Diana, and then and kind of being like combat focused with weapons, but running this.
Although she already has, I mean, it only does 1 damage, but she does already have a weapon that lets her attack with will.
Yeah, good point. You don't end up, in my experience anyway, I don't end up using that very much. I've got guns and shrivelings that I almost always use over her ritual dagger. Twilight Blade. Whatever it is. I only played Diana last night. How do you expect me to know that? Yeah, so maybe with her, but no, I think you're spot on. I think this is for Patrice and is something that should be used a lot for Patrice and almost never for anyone else.
Yeah, it has a very similar feeling to if you've ever played like a Preston with Well Connected, where it's like, I'm really good at 1 test per turn. Mind's Eye Patrice kind of gives you that similar feel. And I think those are fun decks.
Yeah, totally. Okay. Shining Trapezohedron is next. I think I recognize I want to say I recognize this art. Definitely, there have been trapezohedrons in Eldritch Horror. So this is an established Arkham relic. It's a 1-cost level 4 mystic asset here, with just shy of a wild pip, three of the 4 skills on it. It's an accessory slot, and it says, as a reaction, when you would pay the cost of a spell card, exhaust Shining Trapezohedron instead. Or rather, exhaust Shining Trapezohedron. Instead, test Willpower X, where X is that card's resource cost. If you succeed, its resource cost is considered paid. If you fail, cancel the playing of that card without paying any of its costs, including its action cost. For the remainder of the round, you cannot play copies of that card. Wow. Interesting econ card. So this turns all resource costs on spells into willpower tests. And so you exhaust this, so it's max once per round. But this can give you, it costs 1 resource and can give you, double-digit value over the course of a game pretty easily. And the fact that if you fail, it does not, if I'm reading this right, it does not cost you the action that you were trying to spend to play it. This seems real great.
So I thought that at first. I haven't actually played it yet, but looking at it more in depth, I don't know that I would really like it, because the real thing is that it costs a relic slot, an accessory slot, which is typically how mystics boost their will in the first place. So that's really dangerous, that I'm going to be at -1 will because I'm not playing Holy Rosary or St. Hubert's, and I'm going to be trying to use will to play my cards. And if I fail that test, that I now can't put it out. And generally, I feel like I don't play more than 3 or 4 spell assets per game most of the time as mystics. So it's not like the action economy is not amazing. It's like I'm spending 1 action to play this, and it maybe saves me 4 actions over the game. That's decent, but it's not incredible.
Well, so this doesn't save you, and this doesn't. If you successfully play the spell, it does not save you the action from playing it, right? I think it's just saving you the resource costs.
Oh, interesting.
It's refunding the action if you fail, but it is not a fast play of that spell if you succeed. That's the way I read this.
Huh.
Which maybe makes it even a little worse than you were just talking about.
I thought that it was letting you wait till you drew an enemy to play your shriveling. But
no, because it triggers when you would pay the cost of a card, so it needs to be at a time you could play it anyway. And I don't see anything that makes that actually fast.
Yeah, so that's true. That's true.
You can use this on reactions. You can use this on Ward of Protection to save that resource, right? Which actually could be nice, because it means you could play Ward of Protection and other reactive spells when you don't have resources, right? You don't have to sit on those just in case. But yeah, for your shrivelings and stuff, it's not saving you an action.
Yeah. So yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's a decent economy card, but using such a valuable slot, just a simple Rosary is doing so much for you. Think about, instead of triggering 4 times a game, if I draw this before I draw any of my spells, Holy Rosary is doing something 2 or 3 actions a turn, pretty much. It's constantly benefiting me.
Holy Rosary should be on the taboo list. There, I said it. I think that Machete, until it went on the taboo list, was probably my most played card in all of Arkham Horror, and now Holy Rosary has probably surpassed it. You just never don't play it. Sometimes you run St. Hubert's Key instead, but I think most of the time you're doing that just for variety, and Holy Rosary is the better choice.
Yeah, well, it's either Rosary or Hubert's Key or Moonstone if you have access to that. Regardless, they're all boosting your will.
Which this doesn't do. Yeah, that's hard to justify. And Relic Hunter is a thing if you want to buy a second accessory slot. But at that point, you're spending, if you want 2 copies of this in your deck, you're spending 11 XP for the 2 copies. That's not the best deal. Okay, good first take, good first reaction. Maybe you've talked me out of it on this.
The one thing that could be fun, I don't know if it's good, but like some kind of like Akachi deck that's like just constantly putting down spells and then using their charges, maybe with like Torrent of Power, I think is the skill card that spends charges, and then using her special to bring them back and then play them again. Like her special is like the one thing where I can see that you're constantly recycling these cards enough to make this really worth it. You know, whether like I feel like Torrent of Power is like a little bit underpowered because it's just making you really awesome at this test. If it like also made the test do like a zillion damage or something, then maybe it would be more worth like building around like this all-in strategy. But like that kind of deck, maybe the pieces for it aren't out yet, but like where you're just like really expending a spell asset every single turn by using a bunch of charges,
right,
is kind of like the one thing where I could see this being useful.
Well, maybe what we need is more expensive spells. Do spells cap out at 4 cost? I think. I don't think there's anything above that.
The resource,
yeah, the resource cost.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, maybe if we start seeing 1 or 2 5 or 6 cost spells that are fairly central, like that can be kind of a core spell for a deck, maybe this becomes more appealing too.
Though it would be hard to play those, you'd really have to build around actually passing that skill, like a will.
Yeah.
5 or 6 test.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I'm interested to see what people do with this. But you're right. It's not a no-brainer upgrade from your Holy Rosary by any means. Okay, more accessories in Survivor. This is the Nightmare Bobble, which looks unsettling. It's a 1-cost level 3 Survivor asset. It is an item, a charm, and it's cursed. It's in the accessory slot and limit 1 per deck. Forced after Nightmare Bobble enters play, search your bonded card for 3 copies of Dream Parasite and attach them to Nightmare Bobble. When Nightmare Bobble leaves play, set each attached Dream Parasite aside out of play. As a reaction, when you reveal an auto-fail Chaos token, shuffle and attach Dream Parasite into your deck to cancel that token. Okay, I have not looked at Dream Parasite yet. I'm sure it's, right behind this in the pack. Canceling 3 auto-fails seems crazy good. So, what is the trade-off? It's Dream Parasite, whoa, the art on this is cool. It's like a eel kind of thing manifesting out of the sleeping person's dreams. I like it. It's a skill with 2 wild pips. It's off to a good start. But it's a weakness, curse traded, bonded to the bauble. While Dream Parasite is in your hand, you must commit it to the next skill test you perform if able. This skill's icons subtract from your skill value instead of adding to it. And if the skill test fails, take 1 damage and 1 horror. So it converts an auto fail into a maybe fail.
That you also maybe won't draw.
Yeah, that you may not draw. And honestly, like if you've looked at the previews for Innsmouth, it's got a mechanic where that you can put bless and curse tokens in the chaos bag. And what a curse token does is at an unexpected time, it gives you a -2 to a test. This is like, it's actually like kind of not as bad as a curse token because you do see it coming, right? You draw it and then you know your next tests, it's coming. So considering that I'm guessing the Innsmouth campaign is going to be giving out curses like candy, like this seems like not that bad a downside to canceling an auto fail, which almost definitely means you succeed, right?
So, well, the real benefit of this card is that as soon as you put it down, you will never draw an auto fail. So,
well, yeah, for sure.
That's the real benefit. You're never actually going to cancel anything. You will draw like 5 auto fails before you put it down. But
yep.
That's definitely been my experience. For me, the real limitation has been that like my teammates keep on drawing auto fails and it doesn't cancel those.
I was gonna say I really wish it worked for other players. That would be huge. Yeah. And then it can be like maybe it's just because I've been playing Patrice and we've been talking about her here, but I'm like, oh, a 1-cost asset, that's great for Patrice because it's so difficult for her to play the more expensive ones sometimes. But again, it competes with Holy Rosary, with Moonstone for that accessory slot, which makes it tricky.
Yeah, so I did try it in Patrice, and I had Relic Hunter, and I don't think that that's worth it.
Mm,
I think that there are some survivors that maybe don't use their relic slot. Maybe like an Ashcan Pete or something. I don't if you're not going the
yeah.
world with him. Maybe Wendy. Um, so
Maybe Silas will be out soon in Innsmouth. Maybe with him, he's all about skill cards, and you'll be pretty likely to be able to pile in skill cards to counteract the Dream Parasite.
yeah, I mean his
With him.
sanity is pretty low, so sometimes you might play Cherished Keepsake. But if you're
Mhm.
drawing Pete reliably enough, maybe you don't need it. Um, but yeah, that Cherished Keepsake is the one that you might see in people like Silas and Yorick. But
Yeah.
if you find you don't need that, then
Yeah, it's been a real theme of this pack, and this is fine. That these are cards that are like not just like, all right, now investigators are more powerful because this card exists, but it's a lot more of like, well, maybe if you want to switch things up, play this, try this out, which I'm fine with. I'm the type of player who likes to switch things up, so
uh,
a lot of these cards I think I'll get out. There's one
one
left.
one
Oh,
last note on this is that the Dream Parasites, the ones that are attached to the Nightmare Bobble, meaning not yet used,
mhm.
are removed when the card is removed. But the ones that are already in your deck are there forever, so you can't just overwrite it and get them out of your deck.
You're right.
And you can actually draw them multiple times.
It's not like. Yeah, and it doesn't say it only triggers if you're holding the bubble. So it's not like the Guardian of the Crystallizer, where if you get rid of the Crystallizer, the Guardian, it doesn't search your deck and remove it, but I think you just ignore it when you play it.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So these,
There's nothing like that protecting you here.
yeah. And you can draw multiple times, so like definitely not as good in a deck that cycles a bunch. Whereas if it's lower draw, then the downside is much milder.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's another issue with Patrice, huh? Is you're very likely to end up finding that curse. Okay, I think it's a really, really cool design that I'll certainly play. But yeah, it might be a suboptimal decision to do so.
You're like a solo deck where truly then you don't have to worry about auto fail.
That's true. Yeah. So solo where it basically it's if it's nullifying auto fails for your entire team because it's just you, like that sounds great. All right. The last card in the pack is a level 2 upgrade to Scavenging. It's a 1-cost survivor asset that is a talent, does not take up a slot. I think as talents usually don't. And as a reaction, after you successfully investigate by 2 or more, exhaust Scavenging. Choose an item card in your discard pile and either add it to your hand or play it, paying its cost. And I think that last part, maybe some costs changed on this too, but that last part to be able to play it when you scavenge is the main difference here, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, this seems great if you're running Cherished Keepsake and Leather Coat, right? If it costs 0, you might as well throw it into play.
Yeah. Although in someone like Yorick, like who's maybe the most popular person to use those, he already has a way to put them into play. Maybe Calvin.
Calvin would love to be able to recur those. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like when I've played with Calvin players, they're doing more fighting than investigating is the way they tend to build. But and Scavenging obviously is you need to be investigating and not just investigating and like playing, look what I found and stuff, but actually successfully investigating by 2 or more. So that's not something that every survivor does.
With if he's taken enough horror.
Yeah, he certainly can.
Flashlight or something, which you probably want to include if you're playing Scavenging.
Right, yeah. Or like upgraded newspaper, at least for scenarios where you're spending those clues to keep your clue count down would be good. But that's really niche. There's no campaign where you can count on newspaper being constantly good. Okay, not the most exciting card in the pack.
One new strategy that we might see is a Mindex that try to really abuse Fingerprint Kit. Because it does.
Oh, that's interesting.
And she can active desperation it away when it's empty. So that could be a deck.
I don't know when the last time I even thought about Min was, so good call out.
Oh,
I was not going to come up with that.
Min is still very good.
Yeah.
The new Dream Diaries enable kind of like a big hand Min that's really, really good at everything.
Her play style of kind of just find somewhere safe to sit and throw icons in other people's tests, like, just has never really appealed to me. So
she
that's
can kind of do it all herself now. She can move around if she wants, because Dream Diary just makes her so good at everything.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point though. I can absolutely see how this would be great for her. All right. I thought this pack was pretty interesting. I don't think that it was particularly powerful, but I think that's the way that these last packs that are all leveled up cards tend to go. I'm looking like maybe the most raw powerful thing here is Abigail Foreman.
Yeah.
And even that is like, it's not a bomb. Being able to trigger tomes twice is going to be good, but it's not something that's going to win a game on its own.
Yeah, I mean, most of these cards, if they are really good for one character. So Abigail is like an A in Daisy, but maybe a B in other Seekers. Mind's Eye is probably an A in Patrice, but is like a C in like every other, character that gets A. I don't really see anything that's like an A. Sawed-off Shotgun is maybe, if it has an A usage, it's like in Tony.
Right.
But there's nothing here that's like an A in its entire class.
Okay, so we're at the end of the cycle. So before we go, and I didn't, I like to blindside you with questions at the end. What did you think of the Dream Eater cycle from a player card perspective? We'll talk about the campaign someday. What did you think overall?
So let's see. So the Myriad cards, I think you're right that they really got the most interesting in this pack when you started to use them for discarding. Some of the early ones where it's like, oh, it just kind of saves me a little bit of XP on like a 1 XP thing. I would not have like created a new keyword just for that,
Yeah.
But this is like kind of the pack where it's like, oh, okay, it kind of makes sense that they made this a keyword.
Yeah, kind of. The thing with keywords is that part of the reason they exist in card games, it's partly so you can shorthand things and not have as much text on the cards, but it's also partly so that other cards can refer to them, right? Like the fact that these have Myriad means that a card could exist that says, search your deck for a card with Myriad, and that never happened, right? We didn't get cards that care about Myriad. I'm a little surprised that we didn't.
Well, I feel like in this game, most of the time it's looking at traits, not keywords. So like, it's much more like there's a lot more stuff that's like search for a practice card or even spell as a trait as well. So like, I think Arkham in general uses traits for those much more than it does keywords.
Yeah, that is a good point, compared to something like Magic the Gathering, which uses keywords for other cards to key off of all the time. But yeah, I felt like it was just missing that thing that kind of tied it together. Like almost, once you got to the higher level ones, it mattered that you get all 3 copies for 1 price. But like Spiritual Resolve absolutely could have been a level 1 or 2 card that just says limit 3 per deck. Right, like and you just buy all 3 for about the same total price, and it would have been fine. So I think here at the end of the cycle, and I'm guessing that Myriad is going away for a while. The Innsmouth set looks like it has new mechanics that I'm guessing will dominate a lot of the player card slots. I don't think this is a new like evergreen mechanic. I don't think it ever justified itself to me. I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like limit 3 per deck would have been fine.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a long, lengthy rules explanation that needs elaboration in the rule book, which keywords also kind of enable you to shorthand. It just didn't need any of that. So I don't know. It's something that you can put on like the preview articles to hype up the set, like a new keyword. But I don't know. So a lot of the individual cards I like just fine, but never really got it.
The other thing I would say is maybe a bit of a theme of Dream Eaters is I feel like a lot of the strongest and most interesting skill cards in the game have been in this cycle. So to recap a bit, all of the survivor skill cards where it's like you have to commit this to a basic action.
Yes.
Those are all in here. Those are all also great with Min, by the way, since it sounds like you need some to revisit Min.
I do, and you're right, they would be.
They're great in Silas, who's going to be upcoming in Innsmouth.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's like 3 aces. Is Myriad, but really it's just a really powerful skill card for rogues to let
Yeah,
them.
Momentum was a cycle too, right? That's not Myriad, but
Momentum was this
another really excellent one.
The God's Eye that we just saw is a very powerful skill card. So I would say, and Practice Makes Perfect, like enables this kind of very skill card focused deck style was in this cycle. So I would say that, yeah, just like probably a lot more focus on skill card based styles, which is
yeah.
which is nice because it's an alternative to like a really like big rig style. I have to put down a bunch of allies and assets to be powerful, which is a fun style, but it's also kind of great to have like more minimalist, like most of my powers in my hand, and I don't have to have a bunch of stuff on the board to be powerful.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it that way, but yeah, this has been an excellent cycle for skill cards, and has really it really, I totally agree. It's where they've really come into their own. It's almost a little funny because we did not get an investigator that like cares about skill cards in this cycle, right?
Yeah, like if so you have some people are playing with Silas, you know, some people are revisiting Min, who was a very skill oriented one, but yeah, there could have been a pure synergy there, but I think thematically it made sense to wait for Innsmouth to release Silas.
Yeah, for obvious reasons. That's his home. And then I think my favorite thing about the cycle by far, and I think I've been singing its praises throughout these videos, is the bonded mechanic, right? Like it got previewed at the end of the Circle Undone, but like I think it's a Dream Eater cycle mechanic that just they needed a couple extra card slots or wanted to tease it a little bit. And I expect it's going to be going away for a while as well. I think it's genius. I think the design space that this opens up and the way it is, I mean, I've made this comparison to, it's the kind of thing Hearthstone would do, right? Like pulling in cards from outside the game and shuffling them into your deck because you did something else and then they'll come up later. But it's pretty unprecedented in paper card games, at least as far as I've experienced. And I think it's just been brilliant. They've all been, maybe not all super strong cards, but all very fun cards that are cards that I gladly play when I have the opportunity, just because they're just so much fun.
Yeah, like when it was first kind of previewed at the end of Circle Undone, I remember thinking like, I really hope that this is used to give cards that are really powerful with the downside. If you remember, the early ones were all positive bonded cards.
Right.
But we start to see that with the Summoned Hound, as well as the Guardian one that shuffles some monsters into your deck. We also saw cards that shuffle into the Encounter deck with Stargazing. So the one thing we didn't get was a downside that shuffles into the Encounter deck. If they ever bring that bonded back,
that would have to be. Oh, I was gonna say that would have to be pretty bad, but it could just have Surge, so it doesn't have to be like worse than an average Encounter card.
Yeah, so we saw positive ones in your deck. We saw positive ones or negative ones in your deck. We saw positive ones in the Encounter deck. So there really was a lot of room to explore.
Yeah. I just think it's brilliant. I think it's my favorite thing that a card game has done in a long time. So kudos to Matt and the other developers on that. Super cool. I'm guessing it's gone for a while, but I don't think we've seen the last of it, because I think it was super successful and well received. So hopefully a few cycles down the road we'll see more bonded. I think the one downside is it really chews up a lot of slots in packs, right? Like I think the Dream Eaters has just the fewest player cards of any cycle, because it has Myriad and Bonded taking up 3 or 4 slots per card. But you know what? The player card pool is big enough now that I think that's completely reasonable. I think from a player card perspective, the Dream Eaters is probably the worst cycle to recommend that someone like buy with the core set, right? Like what decks are you going to build with just the core set and Dream Eaters? They'd be pretty weird. But you would have less options than if you bought any other cycle along with the core set. But yeah, cannot sing that mechanics praises high enough.
Definitely.
Okay, I think we covered a lot of ground, man. So wrapping up, thank you for watching. We will probably be doing, I think we'll be probably in this type of setup for Arkham Con and some more videos to come, because for now it seems like the pandemic in the United States is settling in for the long haul. So Let us know what you thought of this format, if there's any ways that you think we could improve it. But I think it worked out pretty well. So yeah, if you like this video, we love likes and subscribes. We've also, or I have also, in the quarantine with not a lot better to do than stay home, I've been doing more streaming on Twitch, on Tabletop Simulator, both Arkham with Steven and other friends, and with and other board games. So twitch.tv/optimalplay. That's where we'll be live for the Farkham Con streams as well, which, as a reminder, that's coming up at the end of July. And there's a link there-ish. Yeah, I think that's about all the plugs. Stay safe, wear a mask. Please wear a mask. The sooner we all wear masks, the sooner I can go outside again. Any final words, Steven?
No, just looking forward to more Arkham coming out. We got I think the investigator packs are maybe the next up. Either that or Return.
Yeah, I think Return. Actually, I think maybe Return and the Investigator starter decks are all slated for August. I don't know. We might be spending a lot of time in front of these cameras running down new cards. I'm actually pretty stressed about how, like, if you considered we did 6 videos just for the Dream Eaters box, there are many times more cards than that coming out in those Investigator packs. So we'll have to we'll have to figure out how to cover those as they release. But it's going to be an exciting summer for Arkham for sure.
And then also sort of tragic timing. But if you did not play the Blob from a friend who went to Gen Con or something, that did just come out. It is a terrible time to play that in person.
Yeah, you're right.
Like 15 people, do not do that. Unless you are in like one of those countries like South Korea that have done a great job on the pandemic. But you could maybe try it for Tabletop Simulator. I believe there is one coming up for Farkham.
Cool. Actually, I did not know if there was a blob on the Farkham calendar, but if so, I should get in on that. It's a great scenario. Okay, with that, let's get out of here. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Steven. And until next time, be optimal.